They say don't ever mess with Texans on their own land. But I'll tell you, nothing quite prepares you for the kind of war that breaks out when a homeowners association decides your patch of dirt is their next conquest. You'd think a man moves out to the edge of nowhere for a little peace, but in my case, I bought myself a front row seat to the world's pettiest turf battle, featuring goats, drones, and one hell-bent HOA president with a face like she'd been weaned on a lemon. Let me back up a hair, because this all started with a craving for quiet. I'd had it with polite small talk and cubicle politics. 15 years working aerospace, which is basically another way of saying I let fluorescent lighting and quarterly reviews eat away the best part of my youth. So I cashed out, bought a slice of old Texas earth, 12 acres outside Fairfield, far enough from the city that I could finally hear myself think. The house was old, bones good, roof needed love, and the barn had a stubborn smell that wouldn't quit, but it was mine. All of it. I patched up the porch with my own hands, learned to keep bees, which, trust me, are better company than most people, and let a bunch of goats roam where they pleased. My life was sweat, wind, a bit of goat hair on my jeans, and finally, no one to tell me how to live. That lasted about 3 months. See, on the far side of my field, past the dry creek and a line of old pecan trees, there's a new development, Hickory Ridge. The sort of neighborhood where the grass all grows in the same direction. Mailboxes look like they were ordered from the same catalog, and folks say community standards like it's gospel. I'd driven past a few times, never thought much of it. I figured they'd keep to their side, I'd keep to mine. But as it turns out, some folks can't stand the idea of a life lived outside their rules. It started with a letter, fancy oak seal, legalese so thick you could use it to start a bonfire, which for the record I did. Dear resident, your property violates several Hickory Ridge standards, and so on. Something about non-conforming structures, unapproved fencing materials, and excessive noise. I've got goats, not a nightclub. I laughed, tossed the letter on the firewood, and went back to building a chicken coop. But 2 days later, a white Lexus rolled up to my gate. Out steps a woman in sunglasses big enough to double as riot shields. Clipboard already cocked, ready for battle. She didn't bother asking before stepping onto my land. Walks right up like she's come to survey her kingdom. "Excuse me, are you the owner of this residence?" she says, voice stretched tight with that kind of Texas politeness that barely hides the steel underneath. I told her I was. She hit me with a smile that could strip paint off a truck. "Karen Slater, president of the Hickory Ridge Homeowners Association. We've sent you a letter about several compliance concerns." I let her finish, then told her the letter made good kindling. Her smile twitched at the corners, almost like she'd bite me if she could. "Sir, your property impacts our community's aesthetic cohesion. Your barn is visible from our lots." I just shook my head. "Ma'am, my property isn't part of Hickory Ridge. Never was. Never will be. I've got the deed and the county map to prove it. Want to take a look?" For a second, she wavered. Then she said, "We'll be escalating this. You'll be hearing from us again." Oh, I believed her. What followed was the kind of campaign that would make a Cold War spy blush. Gray sedans parked on the road. Headlights at odd hours. Drones, yeah, actual drones, buzzing my barn. One day I shot one down. Texas law is pretty clear on airspace. Left the remains hanging from my gate as a warning. This property's not a playground. The whispers started soon after. Folks who used to wave stopped meeting my eyes. Rumors on Nextdoor about unlicensed livestock operations, questionable activity at the old Anderson place. They talked about my land like I wasn't even there, like it wasn't me who'd spent years bleeding into this dirt. But I wasn't about to back down. Then, one morning just before sunrise, I got a real wake-up call, sirens, flashing lights, and a bullhorn telling me to come out with my hands up. Imagine standing on your porch in flannel pants, boots, freezing your tail off, while 2 deputies shout at you like you're public enemy number 1. They said there'd been a 911 call about an armed trespasser. The only trespasser was me, apparently, the owner with the deed and the scars to prove it. After some back and forth, I showed the deputies my ID, my property records, utility bills, everything short of a blood sample. They finally relaxed, told me they'd have to file an incident report anyway. I asked who called this in. They said it was Karen Slater. claimed someone suspicious, white male, flannel shirt, gray beard, was lurking near the property line. "That's me every damn day," I said. One of the deputies, Ames, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Do you know a Karen Slater?" he asked. "Unfortunately, yes. She's the local HOA warlord." Before they left, I made sure to take photos, badges, faces, everything. Not because I was scared of the cops, but because people like Karen are real good at turning stories upside down. If you don't have proof, you're just another target. That was when I called Sarah Morales, my lawyer, sharp as a tack and not scared of anybody with a clipboard. She told me what I already suspected. Karen's games weren't just annoying, they were starting to cross legal lines. A couple days later, I get a second letter from Hickory Ridge. Thicker this time, full of threats, unauthorized commercial activity, formal notice of violation, photos of me selling eggs and honey at my little roadside stand. They'd even dug up an old Facebook post from last summer. I made $60, gave half to the volunteer fire department. Now, I was apparently a threat to the legal and economic integrity of the community. Sarah laughed when I told her. "Let's see how they like a cease and desist letter," she said. I did her one better. Put up big signs along the fence. Private property. Not subject to HOA. Trespassers will be photographed. Fed to the chickens, or both. Next, Karen brought reinforcements. She showed up with a man holding a tablet, both of them marching up my drive. "We're here to conduct an inspection," she announced. "All community standards committee." I rested a hand on my hammer. "You're not welcome here. This is private land." The guy with the tablet looked like he wanted to disappear. Karen, to her credit, kept her game face, but I could tell the wind was shifting. I called Sarah again. "Let's give them a taste of legal hell," she said, and she wasn't kidding. Sent a notarized letter to the HOA and zoning board. Filed a preemptive notice with the county. I figured that might slow Karen down. It didn't. Within days, there's a post on a local Facebook group. "Who is Ellis Brooks, really?" Photos of my goats, my farm stand, even the drone I shot down. Illegally selling food, noise complaints, unregulated livestock, the whole circus. The comments were vicious. People who'd never met me decided I was some kind of lawless prep ruining their lives. That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't just coming for me on paper. She was spinning the story, framing me as a threat. So, I decided to go full Texan. More cameras, more lights, a logbook of every run-in. I built a website, thislandismilin.net. Uploaded deeds, maps, a digital overlay showing exactly where Hickory Ridge ends and I begin. For fun, I added a Karen's Greatest Hits section, video of her storming on my path, doorbell cam audio, the works. Traffic boomed, but I knew this would just make Karen angrier. One night, another drone buzzed past. This time, I found a trash bag dumped in my field. Inside, dead chicken, feathers and all. Cameras caught a figure tossing the bag from a white SUV. Looked suspiciously like Karen's, right down to the license plate frame. "Be kind, rewind, or I'll sue." I almost had a laugh. It was so pathetic, like some kind of roadkill theater. Sarah came over, saw the footage, and said, "This is evidence tampering, illegal dumping, and intimidation, all in one." We clipped the footage and posted it everywhere. Facebook, local blogs, even the HOA's email. It went viral. People made memes. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain anymore. But Karen, she didn't quit. Next night, someone cut my floodlight, painted traitor on my barn, tried to spook me. I just upgraded. More cameras, solar backups, off-grid everything. Sarah filed for a restraining order, bundled the evidence, and told me we finally had enough to take this to a judge. Then came the fire. It was after midnight when the alarm tripped, camera near the equipment shed. I thought it was a goat, but there in the dark was fire. Someone had lobbed a Molotov through my awning. Flames ate through the old wood, and the hose had no pressure. Someone cut the water. I used fire extinguishers to stop it from spreading, but lost the awning, pump controls, tools. Fire department came 20 minutes too late. I showed the footage, shadowy figure, baseball bat, classic teenage swagger. I recognized him, a kid named Zach, always hanging around Karen at HOA events. Sheriff Ames said, "We've had complaints about him before. They finally picked him up after catching Molotov residue in his trunk and Discord messages bragging about teaching the farmer a lesson. Zach fingered Karen as the one who gave the green light. Charges: arson, trespassing, destruction of property. DA wanted to call it a youthful mistake. Karen's name didn't make it into the official record, but by now, I had more than enough receipts. I wanted more than an apology. I wanted the system fixed. Sarah agreed. So we sued the county, not just the HOA, for letting a private body act like an outlaw government. Our suit was 67 pages, every incident, every map, every video, and a special request, a full audit of the HOA's finances and county connections. That got their attention. The county panicked. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk settlement. The local news picked up the story. Farm under fire. One man fights. HOA overreach. I became a kind of reluctant folk hero. Eggs and honey sold out. Strangers offering legal tips, and goats named Judy. Karen vanished from public life. The HOA board melted down. Resignations, internal investigations, deleted emails. The ones who used to glare at me started dropping by with pie. Finally, the day came. Courtroom, suits, lemon disinfectant, a judge who looked like he missed fishing. Sarah laid out our case, cool and precise. She presented a note, Karen's own handwriting. Keep pressure on the perimeter properties. Fire may be metaphorical, but sometimes it spreads. That was the nail in the coffin. Judge ruled in our favor. Karen was personally liable, barred from serving on any HOA for a decade, ordered to pay damages and court costs. Not about the money, it was about the mark, the message. As we walked out into the sunlight, Sarah said, "You did it." I told her, "No, we did." The land feels different now. Not peaceful, exactly, but honest. Folks wave, sometimes stop to buy eggs. The reform slate at the HOA wants to dissolve the old board. The air smells like autumn. Soil, goats, new beginnings. The scars on the shed remind me. Freedom takes work, and sometimes a lawyer who's part pit bull. I keep the cameras up, not out of fear, but out of memory. Because if you don't record what happens, someone else will rewrite it for you. Funny thing, I learned the real threat to peace isn't noise or goats or even a bad neighbor. It's silence. The kind where nobody speaks up, where standards hide abuse, where people in charge act like kings because nobody calls them out. And sometimes, the fight isn't just for your own land, but for everyone who's ever been bullied by a little bit of power. So what's justice? In my book, it's the moment you walk your own fields, scars and all, and know that no board, no bully, no bureaucrat will ever take them from you again. Now, you tell me, where's the line between order and overreach? When does enforcing the rules become crossing them? And have you ever had a fight for what was yours against people who thought they knew better? Share your stories, your take on justice. Hell, your wildest HOA nightmares in the comments. Because sometimes the only way to keep your land is to make your voice too loud to ignore.